Welcome back to Bold TV. I'm your host, Philip Michael. Now, let's talk about something that's hot, which is blockchain, crypto, and cybersecurity. Joining us today is the former business development director for Cambridge Analytica, who testified about her involvement in the work of Cambridge Analytica during the Facebook scandal. You guys remember that? Now, she's the co-founder of the Own Your Data Foundation and the chair of Griffin Digital Mining. Welcome, Brittany Kaiser.
Thanks so much for having me.
Now, this is one of those topics. People know that, you talk to your friends and your phone is around and then you talk about something that you never looked up and suddenly it pops up in your phone and people are going, oh my God, all this data around us, where are they getting it from? People seem to understand more and more that there's so much of our information that is owned by, how the term goes, big tech. So what can we do about that? How do we own our own data? Can we? What's the deal here?
We definitely can, but it starts with education and awareness.
Okay,
actually understanding how technology works. I think it was first Edward Snowden in 2013 with his revelations about how data is collected that the public consciousness actually started to wake up to think about, okay, well, our privacy matters and personal information is being collected about us and bought and sold and traded around the world, but what do we do? And then when I came out as a whistleblower in March of 2018, so about 3 years ago, in a couple of days from now is the anniversary, we had nearly a global awakening of people saying, well, enough is enough. What are we going to do about companies like Facebook and Google? What are we going to do to protect our most personal information? And that's why I actually got involved in blockchain technology, because a lot of that transparency and tracking and traceability and the ability to encrypt and own your digital assets is part and parcel of what a lot of the solutions in the industry are currently offering.
I love that direction. And before we dive totally into that side of things, allow us to refresh the memory of the audience if we can. What was it exactly that kicked off, I don't want to call it a scandal, but this big deal where now people are going, wait a minute, you guys basically own us, meaning Facebook? How did it come to be? Why did people listen to you? And how did it sort of go viral, for lack of a better term? How did it blow up? What happened?
So the first big revelation was that Facebook had a mechanism that was built into it called the Friends API. And that meant if you had a Facebook account up until April 2015, that any developer that was part of Facebook's developer program that was building apps on the platform. So you might remember those, what's your favorite Disney princess quizzes, or what city should you really live in, or even Farmville and Candy Crush when those were really popular to play on Facebook itself. Every time you logged into one of those apps and you consented to open the app, you were also consenting to give away all of your data. But what the big problem was, because you are allowed to consent on behalf of yourself, was that you were also giving technical access to the data of everyone else in your network, your parents, your grandparents, your friends, and you cannot consent on behalf of another able-bodied adult. So Facebook was allowing over 40,000 companies around the world that were part of the developer program to take all of our data. And then that data was, again, bought and sold and traded around the world and used in the Brexit election, the Trump election. And I think the combination of the political use and the abuse of data rights together was really what blew everything up.
What was the first news item that who was the first to cover it to where it then became a real thing? Do you remember?
Yes, it was The Guardian in the UK, and
right.
Along with the New York Times. So they together released some of the first pieces of information. The Guardian for a while had been developing something called the Cambridge Analytica files, which is why I decided to become a whistleblower with them and add to the trove of documents and knowledge that they were already collecting about what was being done with data in elections. And then they were starting to look further into the Facebook side as well. And the New York Times came in order to make sure that the story was just as big in the United States as it was in the UK and globally.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't know The Guardian is like the second largest newspaper in the entire world. Something I've seen, according to whether it's page views or whatever metric, but it's massive. So it's two big plays that came out, and it sort of blew up from there. But we're speaking about Facebook a great deal. Companies like Facebook, or even investment apps like Robinhood, they're free, and they also make money from your data. Will we ever be able to at least get a portion of ownership in that data? Because if they trade it around, this data becomes, as you mentioned, a digital asset, and we as the users are that asset. Can we get a piece of that pie? What's up? Can we? I mean, talk to me.
I'm so glad you asked that, because that's what I've been fighting for years. And I'm really lucky that I'm not the only person fighting for it. We have a lot of data rights and privacy activists that are starting to realize that our data is now the most valuable asset on Earth. But somehow we're the producers of the world's most valuable asset, and it's the only type of asset where the producers don't actually have rights to any of its value. So what I've been fighting for is for us to own our data as our intangible personal property. So just like any other property, if someone wants to use it, they actually have to get our permission, and they have to give us some sort of fee that we agree upon. I like to use the Airbnb model as an example, which is, if people want to use my data, just like if they wanted to use my house, they tell me who they are, what they want to use it for how long they're going to use it for. We agree on a price, and I get paid before I hand away my keys. And that's really some of the things that blockchain technology is enabling. Now, on the how quickly is this going to happen side, we just had a huge federal decision yesterday that Andrew Yang and the Data Dividend project have been fighting for in a filing against Google in the state of California, where the federal judge actually said, well, hey, consumers do have property rights over their data. The first decision that actually came to the same conclusion was a big case against Equifax, where I was the only expert witness, and we sued Equifax for property damage in the state of Minnesota, and we won at the Supreme Court. So now we're starting to see more national decisions that actually give us that type of legal precedent. So it's starting to heat up. It's getting really exciting. And we have a lot of legislators like Governor Gavin Newsom in California who are supporting something called data dividend laws, which mean that if companies are profiting off of our data, they're monetizing it, then we get a piece of the pie.
That's what I was going to get at. Almost a residual royalty package, residual royalty package for the producers of the data. I love how you break down the Airbnb model. Is that what you're going for, where people will get royalties based on how much they can monetize someone's data?
Absolutely. So there are plenty of new blockchain technology-based projects.
Just about to ask that. Does blockchain fit into this, and with the transparency and so forth?
Absolutely. So the point of blockchain is that you're able to encrypt and own your digital assets. So even though they're digital, not physical, you actually have to consent and make a decision if you are going to transfer them to somebody else. And you can even put in what's called a smart contract. So it's a digitally encoded contract that you want royalties off of, music or art, which is the NFT craze that's booming, or that you want a percentage of monetization if you are going to transfer data. So smart contracts are some of the most exciting parts of blockchain technology, where we don't have to continually deal with pieces of paper and expensive lawyers. We can set our own terms, and then we can put something out on a digital marketplace, and we can get paid for it. We're about to start seeing, I would say, a digital liberation.
I was just about to say, this sounds like a game changer. And one of the things that we're seeing, so of course you mentioned NFT, and I was going to go there myself. One of the things that I saw probably was the best description of it, because I was curious myself. I spoke to someone who had read into it. So my interpretation of what they said was, okay, let's say we have a GIF that there's the original creation, but then it can be replicated and shared. If you are in the music industry, if we're talking royalties, you create the master recording, and then you basically create duplicates that you then can sell, but you own the masters, the master recording, and it's almost a digital equivalent of that concept. And you could do that with digital art. It's almost like the music model mixed with this whole... I still don't understand how people that collect and sell and trade paintings, how they get a return on that investment, but there is a market for it. So it's almost a hybrid of the two. Is this how you see that NFT-ism with our personal data, where, okay, we own the master data, if you will. You can license it in a way. Is it like that, or should we just get royalties? But how do we do it? How does it fit into the NFT? Does it fit at all?
Absolutely. So I really think that both, music, art, our personal data, all of these can be more easily managed when we are setting terms. The whole point is that we want transparency into exactly what is going to happen. We want to agree to things and then allow any sort of monetization to happen. So whether it's my personal information, it's a piece of art I created, it's a piece of music I'm going to sell. If I want to trade it to somebody, I want to know what they're going to use it for. I could perhaps set terms for that or not. I want to know how much I'm going to sell it for. And if they're going to sell it to someone else, a lot of artists are now demanding ongoing royalties every time it's traded for all of time, as opposed to someone selling a piece of art when they're younger and then they become a famous artist and this is being sold for tens of millions of dollars at auction houses and they are still impoverished because they originally sold that piece for $100, for instance. So it's actually going to revolutionize and empower artists specifically. But when we're talking about the data and privacy implications, those are absolutely endless. I think the most revolutionary part of that conversation is that right now, from all estimates that we can see in the market, all of our personal data is worth at least enough every day for us to be able to feed ourselves and our family, for us to be able to buy our groceries with our personal data and the monetization of that out on the open market. So if we are able to actually get this technology in the hands of people around the world, we can cure extreme poverty. We have over 2 billion people around the world that are living on less than $2 a day. And they could earn enough money off of their data to double their income, triple their income, but completely change the lives of people that are struggling to make ends meet, especially during this economic downturn due to the coronavirus shutdown.
And with these smart contracts, it gives power to the people somewhat, and allows us to, even if they were to do what they do with the data now, at least allow us to consent to it, or give us the option to, look, I want a piece of the pie also. And
Absolutely.
I love that you're bringing that.
Yeah, that's the difference between, I suppose, the concept of privacy and data protection, which is if you want to keep something to yourself, these types of technologies enable you to keep it private or to keep it yours without someone taking it from you without your permission. If you want to share it, then you can share it on your own terms transparently. You know exactly where it's going. So in the data context, a good example is, I might want to keep my name and my home address and my telephone number to myself, but I might be happy to share anonymized information about what I buy at the grocery store, what my favorite color is, what I like to eat for breakfast, so that I can get discounts when I go buy my groceries or discounts from my favorite brand. But I can make sure that they're only going to use it to sell me things that I want, and that they're not, for instance, going to sell it to a political party, if that's how I feel.
This is such a great conversation and a great talking point, and the awareness is priceless. However, what's the next step in terms of the implementation? What can people out there watching do? How can we start taking control of our data ourselves? What can we do today, tomorrow, to implement this?
Absolutely. I think every single moment you are likely touching some sort of technology that is selling your data on. So it's starting to think about the daily decisions that you're making and making a choice that is privacy and data protection enabled, blockchain enabled, so that you have the power to choose what happens to your information or to any other digital assets that you want to put out there. Your art, your music. For instance, you could be using Brave browser instead of Google Chrome. Brave browser allows you to earn digital tokens, which can be traded for Bitcoin, for example, instead of just giving your data away to Google. You could be using voice.com, voice, instead of Facebook. It's a social network that pays you for the content that you create. Instead of posting a new piece of art on Facebook where they actually own the rights to it after you've posted it, you could instead put it on an NFT platform and auction it or sell it if you wanted to and continue to receive royalties. There's just so many options right now, like, using Signal instead of WhatsApp. In order to make sure that you are in control of your data and that is not constantly leaving your hands without your wishes.
These are such great talking points, and I hope we can continue this conversation another time because we're out of time. But I hope you join us again because I'd love to hear about some of the progress with your work and about some more of these platforms that people can start to adopt where they can take control of this data. But thank you so much for joining us here today, Brittany.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
You got it.